Hi, Michael. Welcome to Web3 Digital Marketing Entrepreneurship Podcast. It's so great to have you here, the Metaverse Architects. So it will be so great to hear from you. I mean, how you got into this field and something you talked about 300 miles, creating and stuff. It'd be so interesting to hear everything about that as well.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite, and I'd like to share hopefully something that can help people looking to get into this space or just learn more about what it's like to be a metaverse designer.
That's great. So, I'm sure a lot of people would ask definitely this question, what is actually a metaverse designer? I mean, there's a major question that's coming after it is that who is building the metaverse? I think that's a major misconception people is having. So, would you care to comment on that?
Well, sure. Maybe I should just start by saying that my background is in architecture, so I have a degree in architecture, and the company that I own, that I'm the CEO of, has I think 15 people with 3D experience, and I want to say we have another architect, a couple of interior designers, an industrial designer. Maybe we have three or four interior designers. So we have people with design background, and that does assist a lot. We don't approach this necessarily from a video game perspective. We approach it more from we're we're creating, you know, uh, designing and creating experiences in the metaverse, and there are a lot of different tools out there and a lot of different platforms. So there are some people who come straight from the architecture industry, and they're probably more used to using architectural tools, the kind that you would use to build a house or build a building. And then there are those who come from in the metaverse building from a video game industry, and they're
Yeah.
probably more commonly using tools that are from that space. But but my company's expertise or background is leans more towards the real built world, the architectural world. In fact, I was just on a call this morning with someone trying to build a very large master plan project in Asia, and so you've got um, we've got the ability to go that route more than we do, let's say, make an incredible shooter game.
Hmm. Got it, got it. And one interesting factor I saw is that in your clients' case studies and everything, I recently wrote about this McDonald the lunar eclipse, that new year and stuff. And there's a lot of news section that I took from Google Alerts, and I wrote it on my LinkedIn post. And when I saw those things, like you are the one who built it, I was like, oh my god, it's so great to have that person here. I mean, what is your experience on building these sort of things? I mean, from client perspective or from building perspective.
Sure. We did two projects, one in 21 and one in 2022,
Hmm.
for McDonald's with an agency called IW Group. Sometimes we get approached by a marketing agency to assist with the client, and we're also working with some corporations that are just direct relationships. Like we work directly
Hmm.
with that client. And there's advantages and disadvantages to both, but the experience has been great. We love this because we used to come from a world where we worked mostly with architects, and as an architecture firm or an engineering firm, would have very very specific direction and almost basically just tell us nearly exactly what they want. The corporations tend to leave a little more interpretation and allow
Hmm.
us and actually ask us to say, hey, suggest what you think will work well here, what you like or what you've seen that's been successful. So we get to play a bigger role in the creative side and the sort of suggesting
Hmm.
strategies and concepts and things that we have seen that works well. And we've built a lot of environments now. I'd say we're somewhere over 250 environments, and so we've got now the experience to say, listen, we've done that type of thing before. Keep this in mind. You want to do this, this, and this. So I'd say it's quite a bit of fun, honestly.
I mean, yeah, as you mentioned in your website, I saw that it's a collective group of 125 years of experience you guys have. And I think it's your 23rd or 24th year in your own company as well, almost from 2000. I mean, what do you think the major, change that happened? I think the concept of metaverse is not pretty new. I mean, for example, GTA 5 is something that's been around for a lot of years. And I think that's more of a metaverse. And I really love if they actually create a metaverse of their own. I mean, that would be like massive, the Rockstar games. But what have you seen as a change from this last 20 years in this, space so far?
Well, I appreciate you asking that. Well, first of all, like when I was in architecture school 25, 27 years ago, It was right when computers were, starting to become used a lot more frequently in the education system, but also in the business world, from a vantage point of producing graphics and 3D imagery for architecture. But I was always fascinated by the virtual reality side. So I was I bought my first VR headset back in 1996, I think, and so we're talking 27 years ago. And what I have watched over the last 27 years with this hardware is it's gotten better and better, but it's incremental. It's not like all of a sudden it just got, significantly better. But what happened was in like 2005, I was totally ready to go and just said, hey, I'm going to show all these architects and developers how amazing virtual reality could be for their projects. And this is 17 years ago, 18 years ago. And I was too early, but the hardware was incredibly expensive, right? The headset, everyone talks about, oh my gosh, $2,000 VR headset's ridiculous. Well, I bought a $27,000 VR headset back then.
Wow.
And in fact, the entire system was around $80,000. To do the tracking, you had to have the rest of the equipment. So, that's what I thought would be acceptable. And I found out after a while that it was too technical, too scientific, and there was just no one ready to kind of bite the bullet on stuff like that. But I mean, I will say, the equipment that I had was the same that they had at NASA, and the same one that they had at the big aerospace companies, Boeing, and so we were using the same equipment. I was trying to push it for architects and developers, and it was just too early. And then in the early 2012, 15 range, that time frame, that's when the Oculus Quest was bought by Facebook at the time. And the devices were so much less expensive. And you would think that people would buy into it. But at the time, while the devices were significantly less expensive and they worked well, there was still a little bit more of an improvement that needed to happen from the hardware, just the ease in use. I think the wireless was the answer that we were waiting for. Yeah. But nothing really pushed it until the COVID. Yeah. And COVID was the instigator that really sort of struck the match. And we saw significant interest increase in 2020, and then even more so at the end of 2021 when Meta. So those three things happened at a relatively short period of time. Accenture, a large United States consulting company, announced that they had bought, I want to say, 60,000 VR headsets to do their training and use for their company in virtual reality or in the metaverse. Maybe a month later, Facebook changed their name to Meta and said, we're going to spend $10 billion a year on our metaverse plan. And then maybe a month or so later, Microsoft announced a bid to buy
Allspace.
Blizzard. No, they meant to buy Blizzard. And that was a huge price. I want to say $68 billion or $58 billion. And so in 2020, we would get a call for a metaverse environment, a virtual reality environment, maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks, we'd get a call. And in 2021, we would get a call or an email from someone, let's say twice a week. We would see it more frequently, but it was definitely more in 2021. But in 2022, we were getting sometimes 20 calls a day. So it was just insane, and it was kind of hard to keep track of. And honestly, the challenge was trying to determine, who had a legitimate, project, and who was just kind of had this, I got an idea for something I think is going to go really well. So that was the challenge we had last year. And I'd say things have mellowed out a little bit now, and it's a little more sustainable.
Yeah, and an interesting point that you mentioned is that from the last 20 years, only in the last 3 years or something, you got the major requirements for this VR world. I've seen a lot of articles saying that, will the metaverse fail in 2023? I mean, the one concept people mentioning is that there's a huge difference between Meta and the metaverse, right? I mean, Meta is basically a company that has a space, kind of like Microsoft, which has a space like Allspace, which I think they recently shut down, kind of like a spatial. So would you care to comment on those people who are writing articles based on that? Because I recently saw this article and I was like, it's a major difference. It's not a company, it's a space out there. So would you care to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, Meta is not the metaverse. In fact, Meta's Meta's metaverse solution, if you want to call Horizon Worlds their metaverse solution, I teach a class on this at UCLA Extension, and my students, I ask them to go on these different platforms. And Metaverse Worlds, Horizon Worlds is, it's okay. It does what it's supposed to do, but it doesn't reach the promise of what I think we all believe the metaverse will eventually hold, which is, a beautiful experience, something that is not just kind of anyone can create a world, but one where the worlds and the experiences, are transcendent. They go well beyond what's, kind of limited. And I think that this is all going to work itself out over the next, I don't know, 3 to 10 years, 3 to 15 years, whatever. I will say last year was kind of, the hype was so big that it was challenging, because we fielded so many calls from people who were just looking at, how can I get rich, in the next 6 weeks. We got a lot of people who would propose, like, I got a concept. If you build it, I don't have any money, but I got a concept. If you build it, we'll share the money. And we had a lot of those calls. But honestly, I think that the idea that the metaverse is dead is wrong too. And I've talked to a lot of people about this, and you get a lot of different opinions. But I can tell you from the vantage point that I have, and this is, at least I can't share the details of these conversations, but I will say, we talk with and we work with a lot of corporations, big companies at the highest level, like Fortune, not just Fortune 500, but Fortune 5, Fortune 50. And these companies are not going away with this idea. They're not looking at the metaverse and saying, nah, we're not going to do that. Instead, they're taking this, I think, appropriate response, which is, this is just the beginning. And this technology is not fully mature, but it's not also something that they want to just put on the back burner and say, we'll get to it someday. They are saying it's worth expending a certain amount of time, energy, resources to study, to test, and to prepare for when this becomes an everyday thing. So I think that the analogy that the internet, if you go back, I'm old enough that when I was in college, my first year of college, the internet was just a black screen with little green text. There were no pictures. It was literally just little green text, and that's what the internet was. And you could send messages and everything, but it was a good 6 years or so from that point where you're just looking at green text on a black screen to the world of advertisements and search engines and all of that. So I think that we are in that stage on the metaverse where maybe we're in year 1 or year 2 right now of what will probably be a 5 to 10 year maturization of where the technology gets to where people are using it all the time. And I mean, there is an argument to be made that it's not going to be VR and AR. There's an argument to be made that it's only going to be web-based and you're still going to be accessing it on your laptop or your phone. I slightly disagree, though. I've been to MIT a couple times for the hackathons. I've seen what's coming in terms of kind of the advanced high-level thinking about where this technology is going to go. And I do believe that while the physics makes AR goggles challenging, we're not that far from having devices that the average person will be happy to wear. Because instead of staring here looking at your phone and where am I going? Oh no, that kind of situation. Having it in your vision where you need it at any time. Parking your your television wherever you are, or taking having instant translation features and instant navigation features, instant telephone features, and having your hands free. I think that's going to be a winning solution, but I think that we're still some years away. It was disappointing. I think I can tell you this, like everyone in the industry that I know who's kind of big on the AR was sort of bummed to hear that Apple pushed back their AR. Exactly. I think we all were hoping that they had some kind of, they had figured out some of the biggest challenges. They had so much money, they can certainly come up with the technology. And I think physics makes it challenging. I think the heat dissipation, the battery life, I'm pretty sure they can get the optics right, but I think there's some challenges with the system to really make it work. So I think we're still a few years out.
Yeah, and it would be really crazy to have a full mobile phone connected to your glasses. I mean, even if mobile phones is not totally found in a stable manner. For example, it can explode anytime. I mean, there are still people who are experiencing that and carrying an entire mobile phone on the eyes. Yeah,
I don't think it'll be quite like that. I have a pair of glasses from China that I really like. They're actually, I have like 10 pairs. They're called Nreal. And I saw
Yeah.
them at MIT at the hackathon in 2020 when I was really excited about the HoloLens 2. And the HoloLens 2 just didn't quite hit it for me as far as like the actual optics, because I work with architects and developers and those kinds of people, and they really care that it looks great. So I saw these Nreal glasses and I was like, they work pretty well. They look really good. And I think that's the solution that will something in that line, like a form factor, like a pair of glasses,
yeah,
that actually have probably either a wire that goes to a little, some kind, I guess it's a wallet, but like, some type of small compute unit that would be in your pocket that you just stick that in your pocket. Or maybe, and this would be better if they're talking to each other through I don't know which communication, but something where you're getting this. That's a lot of data to be transmitted visually. Something like that, though. I mean, where the processor and the battery and a lot of the work is being done in a smaller device that you put in your pocket, and then your glasses are talking to it. And it's probably not an always-on situation. It's probably like you tell it when you want, or it knows, and you're in a certain zone to turn on. But most of the time, it's not. I think that could work. I hope it will work. I don't know for sure, but I think it will.
exactly. And the one point to mention is that as a marketer myself, I think it would be so great that marketers can get a lot of data. For example, if you wear a VR goggles and then they can just track all of your eye movements and everything, right? Just
Yeah.
imagine we see an ad and then it instigates an emotion in us and we are smiling and they'll be like, okay, this is an ad that makes them smile for this many seconds, retarget them again and again. I mean, that'll be like crazy data that I mean they just haven't read our minds, but everything else. I think that's the only point that it's still a backlash for that.
We still have some development of this technology that has to happen for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah.
Great. So just to follow up on one thing is that you mentioned you worked a lot of industries. Which industry do you think has had more impact in this metaverse as far as your experience?
I think they're at different stages. I think some industries are ready to use it right now.
Hmm.
Industrial, I think, has applications right now. I think real estate has applications that you can say work right now. And
Hmm.
there are others, however, that I think that their potential is huge, but it's down the road. Like it's years away. I think that retail and just basically commerce will become very dependent, or yeah, definitely it'll be one of the legs that they stand on. Just think about it. Like if you go right now to order, I don't know, whatever, you go to Amazon or you go to a website, you're going to be looking at a two-dimensional screen. You're going to scroll through and read the reviews and then decide to buy it. But there's going to be some advantages to using the metaverse to that. If I'm going to be, let's say, looking at furniture, it should be nice to be able to walk around the furniture to see it from all sides. It might be a situation where I'm looking to, I know, for example, like my wife and I are going to go on a vacation, and I'm looking at hotel rooms, and I'd sure like to look around that room. I'd like to walk around that room and see what I'm really getting. Instead, they just have photographs of like the pillows and the coffee maker.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I know it has that, but I really want to see more than just the pillows and the coffee maker. I want to walk through the space. So I think that the hospitality is an industry that we're going to see. And we used to do a lot of work for Marriott and produce 3D floor plans for them, and just do it like a layout. And that's fine, but that's still a two-dimensional thing. You go to the screen, you see a picture. What I think we'll eventually see is you're going to go to the website and you're going to walk around and see inside, and that takes time.
Yeah.
That's not something that you can just bring in a scanner necessarily and do. That's the kind of thing that requires some manual work, some time, and some talent. So yeah, I think, but I would say I wouldn't say every single industry, but I have
Yeah.
talked to a lot, and even the ones that you think, well, they don't have a reason for a metaverse. Some of them are still looking for solutions. Some of them are still saying, no, we need a metaverse for a funeral home. We need a metaverse for, a fan company, or we need a metaverse for, uh, you know, uh, dentistry. So you're going to see all of these different industries, I think, that are going to have this. But it's still early, and there's going to be plenty of, I hate to say it, but there'll be plenty of losing propositions on the way to getting a lot of winning propositions.
Understood. And I think just to add to that, I think healthcare has been a major, place here. But I think healthcare has been doing that for a really long time. But recently, only with the introduction of the term metaverse and everything, the people have actually been exploring in the healthcare space. Anyone contact you regarding the healthcare space? I've been reading a lot of blogs on that. That's why.
Not well. We are working with we've got a kind of a partner company that we've been working with, and I advise a little bit. That's doing some work on cancer therapy, but we got one of our early opportunities came from the healthcare sector when we were back in, I would say it was 2000 I think it was 2017, 2018, so 5 years ago, where a hospital group asked us to create an augmented reality tour of a new addition, a healthcare hospital. And then we built interior rooms for them, for the doctors to look at the patient rooms and then give guidance and feedback as to where, if anything needed to be moved or if there were any kind of, so they were looking at it as a digital twin to augment this which was at the time they would usually build a physical copy of what the patient room was going to look like before they build 500 of them. They'd build one, but the digital copy allowed them to get there a little faster and walk around and have the doctors and nurses actually experience it. So I mean, but we get a lot more from these days from enterprise level, from Fortune 500 companies that because we've been building on so many different platforms and because we've been doing this for so long, and I think the hundreds of years of experience in 3D and in design and everything, the corporations we do work with, I think, appreciate our experience and the fact that we're fairly agnostic. But we do build most of our stuff on Spatial, and Spatial is a platform that we really, really like. But we also build on other platforms, other experiences when the use case calls for it.
Can you give a few platforms that you have recently worked on, like Spatial?
Yeah, well, like I said, Spatial, I was really excited about augmented reality in 2016 to 2019 because we had better traction with our clients with augmented reality, with a HoloLens and the Magic Leap than we did with VR back then. And so I was really big on that. And Spatial is a platform that initially came out on stage with Microsoft and the HoloLens when HoloLens did their big unveil in Barcelona. I think it was February of 2019. And so I asked to be on their beta tester group, and they allowed me to. So about 3 years ago, a little bit longer than 3 years ago, I became a beta tester for Spatial, and I've been with them and building on their platform and doing things with them since they've really been open to the public for beta. But their platform has evolved over and over and over again over the last 3 years. I mean, multiple times they've made major updates, and really their platform has totally evolved. When it comes to other platforms, though, we were always building stuff on AltSpace, which is now going away. And so that was something where, even just a few months ago, someone was like, "Can you please build this on AltSpace?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can, but we don't do as much of it as we used to." But that was one of them. But we have a lot of partners and companies that we work with and that we're building relationships with. Like after this call, I'm on a call with Journey. Journey out of France, Journee, and they have a really great solution. There's another one that's similar that has an Unreal Engine backed solution, and both these companies use Pixel Stream called Odyssey. We like both of them for different reasons. We're also building a little bit in VR chat. We have experience on Decentraland and Sandbox. We've done a couple of projects in Decentraland. We are also building on Vadim. We've done some work with Arthur. Vadim's a pretty interesting tool in that it supports a large number of concurrent users. So you can have 5,000 concurrent users. They have some built-in e-commerce solutions and some built-in solutions for crypto, or I should say a centralized blockchain. Let me try to think here. Keep going. sometimes I will tell you one thing that we notice right away is that clients typically fall into two categories. They either want the VR or they don't care at VR at all, right? Rarely do we hear someone who says, we really want the VR and the web. It happens. We do get that. But usually they're really excited about the virtual reality. And if that's the case, it sort of divides the group of companies that you can work with by a pretty good margin. Spatial works in VR, VR chat works in VR, Altspace used to be in VR. But a lot of these other ones I just listed, they don't have a VR component. There's no VR solution. We're starting to build on Roblox. We get some customers sometimes that say, can you build something for us on Roblox? But it's different. I mean, every platform has its constraints. And one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of benchmark everything. So we build one experience and put it on, at this point, I think we're around 23, 24 different places we can build on. So we'll take the same model and we'll put it on every different platform and see, okay, what's it look like here? What's the advantage? What's the disadvantage? How much time does it take? What's the cost? What's the, one of the things we were lucky on early was that because we built for the HoloLens 1, we had to have a very low polygon count for that to work. So the HoloLens 1, you really wanted to have everything around 100,000 polygons. And keeping it really low like that generally affords you to go to anywhere. Whereas some platforms will handle more, especially the ones that will run with Unreal. They can handle 1 million polygons or more. But a lot of the ones that are based on real-time, high frame rate require you to have pretty low polygons. And even the Oculus Quest 2. The Oculus Quest Pro, which we have 6 of them now, but the Oculus Quest Pro will support, I can probably have about 1.5 million polygons, but the Quest 2 is around 300,000 polygons. So if you're building for the Quest 2, you've got to have it pretty constrained in terms of the optimization of the geometry.
Yeah. And I think, that's a pretty comprehensive list. So thank you so much for saying that. And one of the concepts that I just want to touch upon is there's a lot of my listeners who want to be in this XR or this VR space. And as you mentioned previously, architecture has been one of the major contributions or a skill that is required. Do you have any other skills that people should learn while creating spaces or experiences in this space?
I just forgot one that I want to mention before I forget, because I mentioned architecture. One of the very first platforms, the very first platform we ever worked with was called WorldViz, and they're very scientific, and they're very, 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 their solution is extraordinarily thoughtful and professional at the highest levels. The other one is the Wild. We used to work for years before they were acquired by Autodesk. We were using the Wild in 2017, 2018, 2019, and their platform is definitely geared towards architecture. And they were, I think last year or the year before, they were acquired by Autodesk, and we're still working with those guys. So that's another platform that we build on. But I think the one thing that I teach this class, and I take my class, teach them part of the class in Zoom like this, and then we jump into VR, and I find that I'm actually a much better instructor in virtual reality than I am on Zoom, because I'm not just staring at a screen, but I can actually point to, and we can bring up models. I can actually gather the team. Like a couple nights ago, I gathered my class around a little model that we were building, and I explained all the different components, and I showed them how it's working. And you feel like they're really there in the space with you, and that's cool. But here's what I would tell anyone who's listening. The best way to really accelerate your learning in this space is to use a tool that lets you look at your experience, look at your environment quickly. The faster you can look at it and see it, the faster you can improve and increase your skills. So use these tools. If you don't have a Quest 2, go get one. If you have the extra money and you want to buy, they're now cheaper, a Quest Pro, get one. Yeah. But because they are great devices. I mean, the $300 or $400 Quest 2 is light years better than the $30,000 or $27,000 VR headset I had 15 years ago. But using it as a tool to improve your skills and visualization understanding is really important. And the other thing is, do virtual reality tourism. And what I mean by that is, go out there and look at what everyone else is doing. You don't have to copy, but be inspired. Just like if you traveled through, Europe and you looked at the architecture, you'd come back with a better appreciation for architecture. You'd come back with a better understanding of scale and a location and presence and context. So look at what other people are doing. Let it inspire you. And then come up with your own ideas. But now you have a better understanding. I'll tell you that my team is right now. I had an idea for a project, and I brought my team in to virtual reality, and we all kind of talked about it a little bit. And here in a little bit, in an hour or so, I'm going to jump back in with my team, and we're going to study a rough model. We're going to place it, and we're going to talk as a team in virtual reality. And then they're individually going to go back as the artists and the designers and stuff, and they're going to be working on components and the interactions and the code and everything. So it's a great tool, especially across great distances, right? And if you can't all be in the same room together, then use virtual reality to increase and improve your skills.
Got it. And I think, that's one of the things that my audience really love, because creating this VR space, there's a lot of issues. I think graphic wise and, hardware wise, there's a lot of restrictions. But there are some people still, say that you can actually, just join through desktop. I tried on spatial. It did not give me, any vibe at all. And I think more hardware is actually needed even for that as well. So yeah, I think that's pretty comprehensive. And thanks again for joining. I don't want to take much of your time. I know you're running on a busy schedule. So just one final thing is that right now, table's done. Is there anything else that you want to ask me?
Where are you at in the world right now?
I'm from India, actually.
Yeah, but what town, what city is north part,
yeah,
south part?
It's South India. So in Tamil Nadu, Trichy. Yeah.
Now let me ask you: Do you have any friends locally that use VR or that are in the metaverse, or do you use the metaverse in the way to access to experience people in other cultures, to go to other places? Because I will tell you, that's the neatest part about it to me, is I can have a meeting with people from all over the world at the exact same time and have a conversation like this with people from 5 different countries at the same time, and it's kind of neat.
Yeah, I actually ordered the MetaQuest since the price gone down. I actually ordered it. It still have to come. But I think in India right now, the concept of Metaverse, it's not like, it's like very 2%. I think that's how it's been going so far. And but actually, we are the first one who had a marriage in the Metaverse. Like, we are the first guys who conducted a marriage in the Metaverse. So, but I think it will take some time more than the European countries and and the Western culture. But for sure that people want to explore more culture, since India is kind of, there's a lot of different cultures here. So yeah, I think as you mentioned, need to incline towards more on that. Yeah.
I think, I've given my brother a VR headset. He lives on the other side of the country, and my brother-in-law and my sons, and I've got people scattered around this country, and we have the VR headset, and it's a way for us to have an experience together. Like, you feel much more like you're in the same room than you do when you're looking at a Zoom call. But I will tell you, it's still not, I wouldn't know what the percentage is here in the United States. I think probably a larger percent than 2 have heard of it, but there's a lot of confusion about whether or not is it meta? I mean, I've had to answer that question hundreds of times, where, metaverse, that's meta, right? And it's just, those guys should not have changed their name to Meta. I wish they hadn't, but they changed their name to Meta and really confused a lot of people in the process. That clearly they're focused on the metaverse, but it did make a lot of people go, well, metaverse is meta, and it's obviously not. Yeah,
exactly. And yeah,
well, thanks for letting me come.
Definitely. And if in case people want to find your services, can you just mention that? I'll definitely put them in the description.
Yeah, the best way to reach us is through Polycount, the website, polycount.io, polycount.io. And you can find me on LinkedIn too, although I'll be truthful, I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn. Sometimes I get 30, 40 in a day, and I go, I can't hit all those today. I'll try to catch it later. So the best way is that if you want to find out more about us, you want to connect to us directly, the website has a contact us page. That's the best way to do it.
Awesome. So guys, I'll definitely link everything in the description below. You can go and check it out. And again, thanks so much, Michael, for joining. And guys, I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks so much.